I totally agree. We don't have the time to reverse all the bullshit because just looking at climate change, even if it wasn't with climate change, just looking at ecological damages, time's running out for the human species. It really is. I
Good
mean,
point, Jim. You made me go ahead if you had another
no,
thought.
no, 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 no. Go.
It was just what you said that there. You must have heard it. If you haven't, it just came out. It was like there's like a report that Madagascar, because of like deforestation, is like the first country at risk for like climate famine. Like it's starting
Hmm.
now. You know, like the whole climate famine, like the agriculture of some countries are starting to collapse because of like deforestation. You talk about another issue, desertification. What else?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole Amazon issue, you know, we've talked about. Just you're right. Like we're on borrowed. We're time is
And,
running out for the human species.
and don't forget, the studies are showing that as as the air warms, a lot of plants are respiring more than photosynthesizing. So they're taking down O2 and putting more CO2 into the atmosphere on top of everything else. Plus, they're not producing, food that the food web needs. And if the air is getting warmer and you have it, you're going to either really soak the crap out of the ground because of extra precipitation, or if it's a dry region, it's going to suck the moisture out of the ground, which will then kill the plants, which leads to, as you just said, desertification. So you got all these crazy things going on. And we're not even talking about the sea ice or the 93% of the heat in the ocean.
I know.
We haven't even touched on those yet.
I know it's a really out of control system. Those, yeah, and then you talk about the day to day of politics. You know, we're not reacting. We're not going to be react. We're not reacting fast enough. We should have reacted way back, but nope, they buckled down and said full speed ahead into doomsday. Like it's just
And don't forget, what we're experiencing today is a reflection of the CO2 level from 10, 15 years ago.
interesting.
The current CO2 level, we won't feel those effects until 10, 15 years down the line. And so
Yeah,
people say, oh, we need to go to zero emissions. Well, there's that little thing called a lag time. And also, now I've been kind of studying up upon this, but the what's called AME, the aerosol masking effect. When you burn fossil fuels, you put these little particles, particulate matter into the atmosphere, and a lot of that reflects sunlight energy back into space. So
interesting.
now, if you start burning less fossil fuels, that you have less of these aerosol particles, which means you're going to have more heat, sun energy reaching the ground, not being. So it's actually going to warm things up. So
Yeah,
we
go
burn
ahead.
fossil fuels, we warm the planet up. But because we have the aerosol, we don't warm the planet up as much. So we stop burning fossil fuels and we still warm the planet up. So,
Yeah, we're on a trajectory that's there's no turning back now. But yeah, the lag effect you said was interesting. You know, we're feeling the effects of what we did 10 years ago. You know, it keeps
yeah.
getting worse. So what is 10 years from now? Like they
Oh,
just
here's another one for you. I was in a Twitter exchange with someone, and long story short, and he gave me some data and some formulas, this and the other thing. If you want to look at the CO2 equivalence level, it's actually like more over 700 parts as opposed to approaching 600.
and they're underreporting that, right? Because we're talking like the news saying 421 record, but really it's seven. I mean, that's incredible. It's amazing. The
Well,
underestimation.
the IPCC is saying 2 degrees by 2100. What are you smoking, dudes?
I mean, not trying to panic people. Like, what is their motive? It's interesting. You know, just
You have 14,000 people contributing, and you're basically playing to the lowest denominator.
okay. Yeah.
But again, they do things like, well, reaching 2C by this date is likely, or this level of ocean heating is very likely. This is highly unlikely. That's vague. That's vague. I want to see statements like the probability of reaching 2C by this date is 0.31. put a damn value on it. That means you've done analyses. But throwing this, it's highly likely. It's very unlikely.
This goes into your video of the 3 degrees Celsius, like the consequences of yeah, we're gonna surpass that. We're talking like 11C, like global average. You know, we're okay. It's a
According
lot.
to some of the models, when you start throwing, when you look at what things are doing, they're exponentiating. When you factor in what's happening with the permafrost, what's happening in the Amazon, what's happening with plants, sucking out of the ground, and we've got the ground exploding literally in Siberia. And when it explodes, it puts a pile of methane in the air. We've got methane coming out of the Arctic shelf in the Arctic Ocean. I mean, we're just putting all this methane up there. So yeah, things are going to be exponentiating. You add these all together with all the positive feedback loops, 9 to 11C by 2100, I do not consider wildly speculative. I consider that quite likely, quite probable.
And then the models go on beyond 2100 to like keep going. We're only talking about 80 years or so, but it's going to keep increasing after 2100.
Most likely, yeah. And don't forget, humans probably go extinct by 4C. So it's just so Kevin Hester basically said, I totally agree with Jim's assessment being 9 to 11C by 2100 and humans would be extinct at 4C. He goes, so when humans go extinct, does 2100 happen?
I know, it's socially constructed years, Jim.